The morning sun spilled across the rooftops of Veliko Tarnovo, painting the cobbled streets in shades of gold. The city, perched on its hills and wrapped around the river Yentra, seemed timeless, a place where history still lingered in every stone. At the heart of this old town stood the secondary school, its walls faded but proud. Inside, students gathered for lessons, their voices carrying the restless energy of youth. Among them was Nikola Dimitrov, a boy of 16 with curious eyes and a mind that absorbed every story told to him. For Nikola, no one commanded more admiration than Petr Kolev, the school's history teacher. Kolev was tall, with a deep voice that filled the classroom. His lessons were never dull. He spoke of kings and revolutions, of battles and betrayals, as if he had lived through them himself. The students listened in awe, and Nikola most of all. He dreamed of becoming a historian one day, guided by the wisdom of this man he respected more than anyone else in the school. On that autumn day, the classroom was silent as Kolev described the medieval fortresses of Bulgaria. His chalk scraped across the blackboard, sketching maps with steady precision. Nikola watched closely, every stroke seeming like a key to the past. After class, Nikola often lingered, asking questions. Kolev answered with patience, his eyes softening at the boy's enthusiasm. "History lives in you, Nikola," he once said. "Remember that." Those words stayed with him like a promise. At home, Nikola told his mother of his teacher's brilliance. She smiled, pleased that her son had found such guidance. In a town where life was often simple and hard, having a mentor seemed like a blessing. Yet not everyone shared Nikola's admiration. In the courtyard, some students muttered about Kolev's temper, about punishments that felt unfair. Nikola dismissed their complaints as exaggeration. To him, Kolev was above reproach, a man of knowledge and integrity. But deep within the walls of the school, whispers began to stir. And in time, Nikola would come to see that the teacher he so admired was not the man he believed him to be. That realization would not come suddenly. It would creep in, slow and sharp, until the moment arrived when respect shattered into silence. Winter came to Veliko Tarnovo, draping the town in frost and quiet. The classrooms grew colder, the students huddling in coats as their breath turned white in the air. Nikola sat near the front, scribbling notes as Kolev lectured about the Ottoman years. The teacher's voice filled the room as always, but on that day, something shifted. A boy named Georgi whispered to his friend. Kolev stopped mid-sentence, his eyes narrowing. Without warning, he struck the boy's desk with the flat of his hand, the sound echoing like a gunshot. The class froze. "You will respect history," Kolev said sharply. His gaze cut across the room, daring anyone to move. Nikola's heart pounded. He had never seen his teacher so angry. Georgi shrank into his seat, his face pale. For the rest of the lesson, silence reigned, heavy and suffocating. After class, Nikola approached his friend. "He was only whispering," he said softly. Georgi shook his head. "You do not understand. He is not who you think he is." That night, Nikola lay awake. The image of his teacher's rage replayed in his mind. The man who once seemed untouchable had revealed something raw, something unsettling. It was the first crack in the image Nikola had built, and once a crack appears, it only grows. One afternoon, Nikola stayed behind to return a book to the library. On his way, he passed the staff room. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, he heard voices. Two teachers spoke in low tones. "Petr should be careful," one said. "If the inspector finds out, it will not end well." Nikola pressed closer. Another voice replied, "He has powerful friends. They protect him. Besides, no parent dares to speak." The boy's breath caught. What could they mean? What secret was his teacher hiding? He hurried away, his heart racing. The corridor felt longer than ever, shadows stretching like dark hands. When he finally reached the courtyard, the cold air hit him, yet it did nothing to calm the storm inside. At home, he opened his history book, but the words blurred. For the first time, doubt entered his admiration. Exams arrived in the spring. The classroom was tense, the only sound the scratching of pens. Nikola poured his effort into every answer, determined to impress his teacher. When the results came, his heart sank. A failing mark. He stared at the red ink, disbelief clouding his eyes. He knew he had done well. After class, he approached Kolev. "Sir, there must be a mistake." Kolev looked at him coldly. "Life is full of mistakes, Nikola. Perhaps you are not as bright as you think." The words cut deeper than any grade. But worse still, Nikola noticed something. Another student, whose father was on the town council, had passed despite leaving half the paper blank. The truth hit him like a blow. His teacher was not fair. Respect was given not for effort, but for favor. One evening, Nikola wandered the streets of Veliko Tarnovo after helping his mother at the market. Passing near the school, he noticed lights still burning in a classroom. Curious, he drew closer. Through the window, he saw Kolev with two men in dark coats. Papers lay spread across the desk. Money exchanged hands. The men left quickly, disappearing into the night. Nikola crouched back into the shadows, his heart hammering. His teacher remained in the room, counting the notes with deliberate care. The boy slipped away silently. The chill of the winter night clung to him, yet the colder truth was what he had witnessed. Kolev was not simply strict or unfair. He was corrupt. The next day, Georgi pulled Nikola aside. "You saw something, didn't you?" he whispered. Nikola hesitated. "What do you mean?" Georgi's eyes were haunted. "He makes parents pay. If you pay, you pass. If not, you fail. My family could not pay. That is why he hates me." The truth settled heavily. Everything Nikola admired crumbled in his mind. His mentor, his guide, was nothing more than a man feeding on power. Still, Nikola said nothing. He feared the consequences. In Veliko Tarnovo, news traveled fast, and Kolev had influence far beyond the school walls. Days later, Nikola returned to school early. Passing the headmaster's office, he saw the door slightly open. On the desk inside lay folders marked with student names. Curiosity overpowered him. He slipped in and opened one. Inside were records of payments, neat columns of sums beside student grades. His stomach turned. His teacher had turned education into a market, selling success to the highest bidder. A floorboard creaked behind him. Nikola froze. Kolev stood in the doorway, his eyes dark with fury. "You should not be here," he said. His voice was low, dangerous. Nikola fled before he could speak again, his footsteps pounding down the hall. The following day, Kolev called Nikola to stay after class. The room emptied, leaving only the two of them. "You are curious, Nikola," the teacher said, pacing slowly. "Curiosity can be dangerous. It can destroy lives." Nikola clenched his fists. "Why do you do it? You are supposed to teach us." Kolev's expression hardened. "Respect is not given, it is taken. Remember that." The boy felt fear gnawing in his chest. But beneath it, anger grew. The man he had once admired was now his tormentor, hiding behind authority and lies. Summer arrived, and with it, the school ceremony. Parents gathered in the courtyard, proud of their children. Kolev stood at the podium, his voice smooth, his smile practiced. Nikola watched from the crowd, ball rising in his throat. He remembered the secret folders, the money changing hands, the threats. When Kolev called out the names of the honored students, Nikola noticed again the pattern. Only those whose families had influence or wealth were praised. Georgi's name was absent, though he had worked harder than any of them. The applause rang hollow. Nikola's chest burned with rage. For the first time, he could no longer clap, no longer pretend. Respect was gone, shattered beyond repair. That night, Nikola walked the winding streets of Veliko Tarnovo, the echoes of the ceremony still in his ears. He passed the ancient fortress rising above the river, its stones silent witnesses to centuries of betrayal and power. He thought of his teacher's words, of the moment the mask had fallen. Petr Kolev, once a figure of wisdom, was now revealed as a man built of greed and arrogance. Nikola's admiration had died in silence, replaced by something colder. The truth was now his alone, a heavy burden that weighed on his young heart. The streets were empty. but the shadows seemed to follow him.